Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Line Change, the NHL betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me once again are my co-hosts and friends, Tim Kalinowski and Nick Martin. Um, very small slate Wednesday night, 2 games. We'll have a little bit of futures talk at the end, but we'll start with the Devils and Caps, a back-to-back situation for Washington. They are a home underdog, plus 136 right now. Devils minus 162. The total is 6. There are some uh, deferring numbers out there at the time of recording. We're recording this on Tuesday afternoon. Um, Nonetheless, I think that most of the money is going to just come in on the Devils, and it likely won't stop here, Nick. And if you can get a good number, more power to you.
Yeah, I think this is just a spot where New Jersey's going to come in and own so much to the play, and the Caps don't have what would have been one of the main arguments that maybe they could hang around the playoff race. They won't have Charlie Lindgren in this back-to-back spot. It'll be Hunter Shepard, who has played pretty well in a tiny sample size so far in the NHL this year, including a win over the Devils. But I don't really expect that to continue. He's got a 908 save percentage in the AHL in 16 games. I feel like it is what it is. I actually think the Devils realistically might even have a goaltending advantage here, which is pretty much unheard of for them. Um, and you got the Caps playing a tough game Tuesday in Pittsburgh where Kemper starts. I just think New Jersey's kind of going to run all over them in this game and should get paid off. I don't hate the over when you're talking, which seems very contrary to like kind of a lot of what we've been saying about the Caps, but I just think Hunter Shepard, this Devils team, I can see how it might open up, but I'd rather just play the Devils if you're getting better than minus 160. So I think it's a tough spot for Washington. I still think the Devils are really good, and you don't, have the goaltending disadvantage you usually have if you're the Devils. So yeah, I think they can pay this one off.
I think it's going to be a pretty popular night for people just playing the two favorites in a two-leg parlay. We'll talk about the next game, which is Leafs and Ducks, a little bit, but I would hold your horses on that one. I do think that the Devils make a lot more sense if as a favorite than Toronto does in that one. Tim, anything here, Devils and Caps?
Yeah, I think Nick put it well. I saw an opening number. It's somewhere around, 150, 155. I grabbed the Devils minus 155, probably like it to, 60, 65 range. I think it's a bit of a misprice. Wouldn't be shocked if this thing balloons up pretty heavily to New Jersey. Way better team. Capitals playing a back-to-back. Never even considered oddly enough that they might have a goaltending edge. But yeah, I mean, it's New Jersey has nearly every edge here plus the back-to-back for the Capitals. And I know it shouldn't mean much, not like a ton of travel or anything, but it's just a good spot for if New Jersey's going to continue to, it should climb. It depends on kind of what your assessment of New Jersey is. I think that they're still going to be ascending here and that they're, a good enough team to score their way out of some problems. So this is a game that they should win and they should do just that. So yeah, I like New Jersey here.
Yeah, New Jersey's winning a lot of games for a pretty large sample now. They're just not making up that much ground, and they had already dug the hole. So I feel like it almost is like it feels like people are almost like viewing them in a disappointing light. And really, I think it's just been that they had that slow start, and since then they've kind of played to the pace that everyone expected. But you just don't even notice because they're not gaining that much ground in the East, and they need to be winning at like a crazy rate to get to where they need to be. So I feel like if you lop off that little sample where they didn't have Heischer and Hughes, basically their season looks respectable, even though they've mainly just had horrific goaltending sewer them. So I still think the Devils are pretty good. I don't think they're like a clear disappointment. They haven't been as sharp defensively as we might have expected entering the year, but I mean the Capitals, they have very little in the way of scoring upside at this point.
Yeah, New Jersey at the time of recording, like I said, we're recording this before Tuesday's 13 game slate, so these numbers will jump around right now, but they're a point out of the last wild card spot with games at hand on Tampa. They're 3 points behind the Flyers for third in the Metro. Islanders and Flyers are tied there. 4 points behind Carolina, and 11 back of the Rangers for the division and President's Trophy race. So we'll talk futures in a little bit, but uh, we did see Edmonton put together one of those crazy second halves, and some team will do that. And if the Devils are definitely a candidate, if you're looking for that one team just to go scorched earth. So that's a 7 p.m. puck drop on Wednesday, a 9 p.m. Eastern time game, which is a little strange because it's in Anaheim, so it's a 6 p.m. local. The Maple Leafs are minus 192, Ducks plus 160 at the Pond. A total of 6.5. You do have to do a little bit of homework before this game. That is that Toronto is still carrying just 2 goalies, but those 2 goalies are Martin Jones and Dennis Hildeby, who's never played an NHL game. This is his first season in North America as well. He's putting up good numbers in the AHL. Sheldon Keefe did say that he doesn't have a problem going back to back with Martin Jones, and I feel that that's probably the likelier scenario here. And I say it because does it really matter that like they're gonna ride Jones at this point? Like it's not gonna be a situation where he's gonna look to like get a Hildeby or whoever backs up Jones until Samsonov comes back, or will work here and there and tries to like get him warm. I just think that he's gonna have no problem riding Martin Jones because it's Martin Jones. Like is it a huge deal if Martin Jones goes, pear shaped? No, because then you just go out, then you can go out and get the other goalie. I don't think something tells me that Keefe is just gonna ride Jones until the wheels kind of come off or don't. But that's just my thinking. And the problem is, no, I've got no idea. Nobody has any idea of how Hildeby will hold up in an NHL game. I think there's enough variance here with the Leafs on the back-to-back. Not struggling in terms of in front of the goalie, but just the situation is so murky that it's really hard to lay this kind of number. And, the Ducks do have the talent to give teams issues. So we've seen Toronto struggle in these kind of spots in the past. So we'll see. Nick, anything here? I would lean towards the Ducks is what I would say at this number. I do want to hold out hope that maybe it gets to, plus 175, but I don't think it will.
Yeah, I actually don't hate the Leafs here, but I'm hoping Hildeby plays. I think they'll show out for him, and I actually think he can be as good as Martin Jones. So, without having heard the Keefe comment you dropped, I'm pretty surprised to hear that supposedly they might not roll him here. I think it's a good spot to do it. You get him in the mix. You
once
get
he
him
said
playing
that,
the Ducks.
and I always say coaches and GMs lie, but once he said that, I was like, maybe in my head, I'm like, maybe he's just thinking I'm just gonna go with Jones until the wheels come off because it's not a huge deal if they do. Like it's just not.
Yeah, the other thing that's probably going to happen is Kings will just get 50 shots tonight and then Jones will look bad. Or or he won't look bad and they'll be like, oh, well, he put in a pretty big shift last night. Let's just go with Hildeby here, who is a very good AHL goaltender on a really good team. So you got to factor that in. But I think he has the potential to be decent. I actually he's not going to be Joseph Wall, but I wouldn't be shocked if this is comes in and does okay. Pretty highly touted, was pretty dominant in Sweden too. I don't know. I think it's just could work out. And then the other thing is, how does that game go tonight? And the Leafs have responded pretty consistently. So I'm a little interested to see how it goes. The Ducks have been an absolute train wreck. And maybe we've seen the nut bottom for them. They've got some of their guys back now. They've got Zegers back. They got Drysdale back. That should help some. Troy Terry's out though. Leo Carlson's out. This team is they're bad. I don't know. I don't think this is that big of a number for the gap in these teams. If you look at the rate they're going to win this season, I think it's, I don't know. Kind of a lot of balls in the air in this spot. Probably not one we'd look too much at in other scenarios. And then the Ducks can't defend. At some point, it's just, they looked better to start the year, and I thought there was something kind of legitimate to it with a new coach who seems far more competent after they had just probably the league's worst coaching last year, I would say. And at this point, it looks like they've just fallen back down to earth. And really, I don't know. A potential angle, too, you could consider would be the Gibson saves, but that's a little, I don't know.
I could see the Leafs trying to play kind of a lower variance type style here, though. So
I think that's the thing for sure. You get a new goalie in there, and you've seen what you've gone through as a team with this whole Samsonov disaster. I don't think, I think, yeah, definitely priority number one would be not letting him just get caved in and a bunch of chances. He has no shot of saving and ruining everything when they know they need a backup. So I think that is decent in a spot where like I'd otherwise you might be almost looking at the over as well.
Yeah, that's because that was my initial thought was like over, or maybe I just go Leafs team total over, but I can see them kind of being like, you know what, let's just run the ball and kind of get out of here. Like when you look at what's coming up here on this little West Coast trip for the Leafs, they then go at San Jose on Saturday night. And if you're gonna start the kid, I think it's important to not start him on home ice and that just, what can turn into you know quite a lot of eyeballs on you and kind of be a bit of a igniter to the media and this and that when they're playing on home ice and if you were to lay an egg. So you're probably right, and there's not a big difference between Hildeby and Jones, but I think that we're gonna see a start here from him in one of these. Like I said, it's at Anaheim, at San Jose, then home San Jose. So I feel like you have to throw him in one of these games to see what you have at least. And I'm
100%.
and then you got to pay attention to Keefe's comments. Maybe he says after morning skate or something, hey, like I'm challenging these guys to kind of really show out for our goalie and put the clamps down, something like that. So that's why I kind of less interested in playing on them because I think I could see Keefe being the type of guy to say like, hey, let's go low variance game here. At least try it, challenge his group in a way.
Well, and the classic Leafs would be lose in LA where everyone, or I guess LA's not hasn't done that good at home, but you know what I mean. Lose a very reasonable game in LA, and everyone will freak the hell out, and the players will hear everything and all that good stuff. And then realistically, tomorrow becomes a pretty huge game, and you get a response versus a horrific Ducks team. I just,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, like I said, there's a lot of homework involved in this one. I would lean towards the underdog in these kind of situations. I also wonder if the Leafs are a little trepidatious, like kind of what you said, Tim. The goaltending has been such a talking point in Toronto and Canada and in just the hockey world in general that if let's say Hildeby doesn't play well, like this is his first season in North America too. I would wonder if they're a little nervous just throwing him to even the Ducks, They're not throwing him to
Yeah.
the
that's a
Wolves, but throwing him to the Ducks. But then you got to wonder, like, handling him. But we're getting.
And the Leafs also don't protect anyone well, right? So like even if you're like, hey, they're
they're
gonna try
like,
and play that game,
but that's what I mean. Like, I don't think they're not what they were defensively at all, but they're like a middle of the pack team, or worse, I guess, middle third this season
Yeah.
has been kind of where they've been floating around, but it's just like gets exposed so badly.
Yeah.
And then you hear about it more when it does happen. Because there's like a lot of reasonable teams like looking right now that are pretty similar to the last month. And, the Leafs, the goals against really does look fine recently when Jones is in there saving the ones he's supposed to versus when Sammy's in there letting in like just all sorts of crap.
but this is what makes the Leafs a good regular season team, right? This is why they have
But this
100
isn't
plus
the
points.
same team. It's not the same team. You look the last 3 years, they were legitimately dominant defensively by any way you wanted to look at it. Like this was a good defensive team. And now
Right,
they're
but
not playing at the same level.
they're not, but they do have a knack for being able to score their way out of problems, right? And then just like
But the thing is, that wasn't what happened in the playoffs. The playoffs proved more than anything they were legitimately good at defense. They couldn't score goals. Like they lost the same series for like 4 straight years, losing all the big games 2-1. And then this narrative would prevail and be wrong. And now I think this team is legitimately different. They changed a lot of the personnel,
Nick,
and
we could do 4
it's just
hours on the
showing.
playoffs. We could do 4 hours.
We
We'll get
could,
there.
but
We'll
I'm
get
just
there.
saying
We'll
none of
get
the
there.
numbers actually agree that this was a bad defensive team. And now I don't think that was necessarily what undid Sammy, but it definitely didn't help that he went from having like probably the most underrated environment in the whole league to having just below average defensive play and breakdowns.
Okay. We will continue this conversation throughout the year, obviously. Um, let's do a little future shopping. Head to the Futures Lounge. I want to start with the President's Trophy odds because in terms of team futures, look, you want to bet some Stanley Cup futures right now, go right ahead. Like it's a Kentucky Derby season. I've been saying that since the beginning. you can make cases for and against basically every team involved.
Florida's still 17-1.
Yeah,
Florida's still
Florida for,
17-1.
for certainly, and I actually think the Panthers are a little interesting in this next market we're going to talk about, which is the President's Trophy. So the Rangers right now are your clear consensus favorite. They're plus 230 to win the President's Trophy, most points in the league when the regular season concludes. But they're on 51 points. Like the Rangers have been good, and they've been very good at just kind of taking care of their own business, and that's what's led them to having the best record in the NHL as we get into the new year. But they're in first place overall in terms of points and points percentage on 51 points. The Hurricanes are 10th, and they're on 44. So like there's 9 or 8 teams between the Rangers at 51, the Hurricanes at 44. The Panthers are one of those teams. The Jets are one of those teams. I think are interesting. There's a couple of teams, even if you want to like drop down a little bit further, that I think maybe could be interesting. The Devils would be the only one I'd consider like past that cutoff. And I brought up that Oilers point earlier for this reason, which is if you do think a team can run like the Oilers did over the second half last year, this race is live. So I think that Florida is sitting at 28-1. Not a bad bet at all in this market. The Hurricanes at 50-1. Like if you think the Hurricanes can challenge for the division, go ahead and scoop up that 50-1 instead. Nick, anything here? Any other futures we want to talk about as we kick off 2024?
Yeah, I like the Panthers Presidents at 28-1. Out of the ones you threw out there, I can see the logic with the Canes. My beef is it's just going to be so damn hard. It looks like on the nights Kochekov's not in, and even the nights Kochekov's in, he's not stealing you games. I think at some point that's just so taxing. I like the point you made. I think the Rangers are obviously a worthy favorite. They're getting good goaltending from both options. They're playing quite well, but I think we've probably seen more or less their, kind of the best running of their play. It feels like if you're like, I wouldn't buy that. It feels like kind of a buying high type of thing. The Panthers have really just underperformed offensively what they should have based off their play, I think. And other than that, everything looks really good. They're healthy right now. They're pretty deep. They're not necessarily an injury away at any one place. I mean, Barkov would obviously be kind of a nightmare, but still. And then you look, both goalies are pretty legitimately good goalies that have played well. Like Stolar's had really good numbers the last few years for backup, and Bobrovsky is supposed to be a very legitimate starter, and now he's showing like that again. So I think the case that Florida can win a lot of games and get in the mix of what is like a really open race is there. And then we've talked about it. I don't know if the Bruins are going to keep cleaning up. Like I feel like from this point on, they'll probably play at like closer to like 100-point pace. So I think they're catchable. The Stars look really good, but they are having some goaltending issues. And then, I mean, the Kings are obviously in it, but I think they're kind of priced fairly. And then the Avs. So if you look at the top of the board, I think the teams are gettable, and I don't mind the Panthers at all.
And to piggyback off the Panthers point, I'm looking at plus 270 to win the Atlantic. And, obviously your number is a lot more appetizing and longer to win the President's Trophy. But you touched on Boston being minus 140 to win the Atlantic. I just think I'd try and fade Boston to win the division. I don't think that they think Florida just profiles as a better team. It's not outrageous to think that they could win the Atlantic. So I'm interested in that. And I want to add one more, to make the playoffs market. Tampa Bay Lightning are minus 122 to make the playoffs. They currently hold that second wild card spot, but they have 38 games played, which is, the most of these Eastern teams that, they're tied for the most with these other Eastern Conference teams with 38. And I think it's a legitimate, argument to say that they won't make the playoffs. You have New Jersey on the outside looking in right now. And so a team that I think is kind of interesting and to make the playoffs instead of betting just Tampa Bay, is Detroit to make it at plus 330. So I'm trying to.
Ooh, Detroit.
I'm trying to workshop this anti kind of possible Lightning thing.
So what's interesting there is I think that
you got to look at the teams that are out too, because it can definitely be like, I think that's probably, what is that? A little high on Detroit.
It is, but I
I
don't
don't
think Washington's
because
ahead of
Pittsburgh
them.
can
I
get
don't
it.
think
Oh yeah,
Washington's
Washington won't. I don't think he'll be there, but I think Pittsburgh can get in. The Devils can get in, and then that automatically is the case. I think the Lightning point is good. It's like, do you want to tie up a future for that long for plus 100 when you have like a bit of an edge is
right.
debatable, but I think it is a really reasonable take.
And so the way I'm looking at the playoff race now is it does feel like it's going to be 5 Metro teams as we sit right now. So Toronto, Tampa, and Detroit are in a little mini league for that third spot in the Atlantic, and you'd obviously make Toronto pretty uh, prohibitive favorite. But when you look at it like that, then you're talking, okay, so can Detroit play at a pace that's reasonable enough to clip those two teams? And I don't think the answer is an outright no, and you're getting a decent number. But yeah, it's the it's tough with that Red Wings team, man.
It is tough. I'm trying to talk away to
Yeah, I get you.
anti-Lightning,
Yeah.
and inevitably I'm going to pick the wrong team to kind of
Yes.
do
Yeah,
that, but
you'll right church, wrong pew, as our
right,
friend
exactly.
Mike
Mhm.
Francesa would say. All right, anything else futures wise before we get out of here and get ready for this 13 game slate on Thursday?
Florida's still 17-1
Yeah.
to win the Stanley Cup. I can't
Yeah,
believe
I
it.
think that's pretty good. I think the rest of the cup futures look pretty dialed at
Yeah,
this
I think
point.
it's Panthers or Jets right now if you're looking.
Yeah, because we threw the Kings out there. They're still 14-1 here. I don't
Yeah,
hate
I mean
that,
the Kings
but
the Kings have not since they're kind of the whole hockey world caught on to them. They slowed down a bit their pace, but they still have all the like they still tick all the boxes that you're looking for. So
yeah,
kind
they're
of
really good. I
yeah,
mean,
I
the
just have too much
need it.
invested in them already.
yeah.
That's my
Yeah,
thing.
no, we timed the Kings and the Panthers ones pretty well, and I still feel like those are kind of the main ones that like I'm happy about. So, and then yeah, Mike's been pumping the Jets this week, and I think they're pretty good depending on where you can get them. There's a pretty big discrepancy on these right now as I
Yeah.
look across the board. So we'll pump up line shopping as always, especially for futures. I feel like it's just so easy to just put it where you want it and then
Yep.
just leave it. It's not the same as like checking in and using the site every day. So
Leave it and then forget you bet it. That's
that's
how I do
exactly
it.
right.
All right. So that does it for today's episode of Line Change. Like I said, we'll be back for Thursday's Monster 13 game slate. Nickel maybe throw in some World Junior talk if we allow it. But other than that, best of luck on Wednesday night. For Tim and Nick, I'm Mike. Thank you for listening.